Good morning, everyone. Good morning, rise and shine. Good morning, Sumit. So we did the regulatory understanding and the general overview. Now we will look at an analysis of the education sector. I'm going to also give you a template which we can use, and then we'll also look at certain specific aspects. The template generally applies to any social sector, and you can divide your answers into three basic headings. The first is equity, the second is access, the third is excellence. Now, equity, as we understand it to be, is a personal discrimination variable. Equity is a personal discrimination variable. इसका मतलब ये है that as an individual, what is stopping you from getting education? How are you discriminated from an individual parameter on an individual determinant? You will generally see gender, which is individual. You will generally see location, which is rural or urban. And you will generally see, for example, economic propensity, which is rich versus poor, right? Affordability in education. This is your equity framework. Access is your social discrimination variable. Here you need to know effectively what is stopping a larger community from accessing education. It would generally be caste or religion. And excellence is nothing but a stakeholder framework. Now, every sector will have a beneficiary, a provider, and a facilitator. So, here you would have students, here you would have teachers as providers, you would have schools as facilitator, and you would also have the government, you know, largely as a overall regulator slash facilitator. Are we okay with this? Do we understand this? Right? Now, all we need to do here is figure out three aspects. What is the gender problem? Try and explain it with some data. And how do we solve the gender problem? Simple as this. What is the gender problem? How do you want to solve the gender problem? And largely speaking, what is your general understanding of it? Are we clear on this? Do we understand this? Yes or no? Good. Now, gender. So this is one standard framework. Now, very rarely do we get an analysis of the entire sector. Now we get more specific questions. But let us say, what is the gender problem? The gender problem is enrollment and retention. The gender problem is enrollment and retention. Now we know the data sets. There is a greater enrollment and retention problem in senior and senior secondary schools. Yes or no? There is a greater problem of gender enrollment in senior and senior secondary schools? Yes. Primary and upper primary, that doesn't seem to be a problem. Good. Now, we have our SDG linked data for it to prove it. Then the question is, how do you solve it? Then the question is, how do you solve the gender problem? What are we doing for it? We would have certain scholarships. Yes. For example, states like West Bengal will have a conditional subsidy. They have a very popular scheme in West Bengal wherein the if you get the girl admitted to school, you get a cash reward or a cycle or both. And as long as the girl continues in school, you get periodic cash incentive. Do we understand this? This is called a conditional cash transfer or a conditional scheme, right? Good. Why is a decline of enrollment? There is a general decline of enrollment if they don't have separate toilet facilities or they don't have adequate toilet facilities. So ensuring that the infrastructure is girl friendly, yes or no? The infrastructure is girl friendly to make sure there are adequate number of toilets, to make sure that there are functioning good toilets, simple institutional infrastructural measures. Good. Then comes the larger question: is security of women a concern as to why women might not be attending schools? Which is one of the reasons why sometimes single gender schools make sense. Some of you may have often heard about this in your districts called Rajkiya Mahila Vidyalaya. Sometimes you would have heard of these things in your districts called Rajkiya Mahila Vidyalaya. What is this? Rajkiya Mahila Vidyalaya is nothing but dedicated schools for girls. Clear on this? Good. Enough for gender? Does it make sense? Yes? Good. Now, location. What is the location problem? While there are more rural schools than urban schools, there is generally a problem of quality and availability. A lot of times in rural schools, we do not have adequate infrastructure, or a lot of times we see that the teachers are not available. For that, our NEP recommends what is called a cluster approach. Just NEP cluster approach is more than enough. Now, what is the NEP cluster approach? The NEP cluster approach is a very simple approach. What it effectively does is this. It says, in a 8 to 10 kilometer radius maximum, let's say 5 to 10 kilometer radius maximum, you should have all levels of schools in this radius: primary education, middle education, senior education, senior secondary education. All of these schools should be in a close knit area. Clear? This will help in two ways. One, you're not building duplicity of schools. Second, if a teacher is not available here, a teacher from here can go and teach. So you would be able to very readily ensure availability of resources, whether it is teachers or generally infrastructure. Does it make sense? This is nothing but the NEP cluster approach. Does it make sense? Yes or no? Solves the urban rural problem. right? Largely for right to education, it solves the affordability problem, and right to education merged with PM Pushan solves the affordability and retention problem. Make sense? Good. So now we should be looking at a more detailed review of right to education. We know it is Article 21A, Right to Education Act, supplemented by Right to Education rules. And because education is in the concurrent list, you would have your state right to education acts and rules which will basically be complementary to this. Make sense? Good. Now, this is important for the pre and the mains both. So, what are your absolutely key effective provisions? Let's understand this. One, today education is not isolated. It is also run through the PM Poshan Abhiyan, which is nutritional support, and the back-end support to nutritional support is the National Food Security Act of 2013. And because it is ultimately a federal setup, you would see the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights and the State Commission for Protection of Child Rights to be monitoring agencies. Correct? Our key areas of understanding are the Right to Education Act, the Right to Education rules, the PM portion. Yes? No. Article 21A is very clear. It uses the word free. It uses the word compulsory education and says 6 to 14 as per law made by the parliament. These are our keywords. But what is actually the meaning of these keywords is actually reflected in the Right to Education Act. Yes, where you will see it is free for those who cannot pay. It is compulsory in the sense that it is an obligation on the state. If the parent does not want to send the child, if the parent does not want to, indulge the child in education, and the parent withdraws consent, there is nothing that you can do. So it is compulsory in terms of state obligation, correct? And it is free with certain terms and conditions attached. Okay, good. Now, if you generally look at PCN 6, I've given a you can I've given a list of very specific features that you should know. So, for example, in the right to education, it is the concept of getting admission to a nearby school. The idea is if you want to go to school and you're not able to go to school because you're not getting admission in school, it is the government's fault. Now, how is the school allocated will depend on state to state. Some will ask to fill preferences. Some will ask, on a lottery method. But the principle is to get admission as much as possible to a school in your neighborhood. Otherwise, the purpose is lost. If transport and logistics is going to be one of the reasons why all of this is not going to work out, you will not end up going to school, then the whole system becomes pointless. Yes or no? Make sense? Good. Secondly, this is applicable, this Right to Education Act is largely applicable to private schools. Government schools will admit as many as possible. And this reflects the reality of the paradox of the system. The problem is not getting admission in a government school. The problem is getting an admission where the parents want. So you have a 25% reservation for EWS, and this EWS is not the newer 2019 EWS. This EWS also includes SC, ST, and OBC, right? And applies to private, unaided schools. Clear? Make sense? There is no such reservation needed for government schools unless you're not getting at least 25%. So and that is never the case. So it is largely aimed at private schools. There has been a lot of issues. We have discussed education-based judgments also. If you look at the Pramati education case, if you look at several of these religious minority cases, they've largely been about whether you can apply or not. Correct? Good. In fact, very recently, this is very important. In this particular case, brand new judgment from February 2025 only, I've kept it reserved for you, is Dinesh Biwaji Ashtikar. Even if you remember Dinesh Biwaji, it is more than enough. Versus the state of Maharashtra. Okay. This is the last hearing on this is 2026. Now, basically, this 25% reservation is mentioned under section 12 clause 1 clause C of the Right to Education Act. 12 clause 1 clause C of the Right to Education Act. Okay, where this reservation is applicable to private unaided schools. What this judgment says is that now the Supreme Court will see and the Supreme Court will monitor the overall implementation. The Supreme Court will monitor the overall implementation of section 12 clause 1 clause C. Are we clear on this? Do we understand this? Yes? Just this much. This is also one of the reasons why I think right to education is going to be important for this year. It is a news which is important enough, but for some reason does not get covered in your mainstream books and everything else. The background of the case is just a supervision in terms of is it being implemented properly or not regulation. Regulation court can't do. Now, the word that you use is generally called a continuing mandamus, that you keep having a look until we finally know what the case is. So basically what happens here is Dinesh Biwaji approaches a private school in his neighborhood seeking admission for his children under section 12 clause 1 clause C of the Right to Education Act of 2009. Now this provision says all private unaided schools will reserve 25% in class 1 for children from the neighborhood who belong to weaker sections and disadvantaged groups. Okay. And the section says the elementary education has to be provided free of cost until it's completed. Now, the school denied admission to the child. So, it is a right violation. The petitioner approached the Bombay High Court under Article 226, filed an RTI also to see that, and the RTI revealed that there were vacant seats in the school. So then, and this is a 10-year-old case by the way, in 2016 December, Bombay High Court dismissed the petition. Bombay High Court said that Dinesh Biwaji had not taken the appropriate steps of filing for admission as per the proper online procedure. Now, at the same time, there was a letter which was circulated by one of the district officials, the primary education officer of the concerned Jilla Parishad, who had written a letter basically saying that children should be admitted without following the online process. Then Dinesh went to the Supreme Court under SLP. 2017, the court had issued the matter also. And that's when the case really progressed. Do we understand this? Yes. There's also a similar case called Imran Ahmad versus Union of India, which is also pending in the court. They will effectively be looking and monitoring the cases together. So basically, in January 2026, the court had issued a judgment directing all the appropriate authorities to frame proper enforceable rules and regulations for implementing 12(1)(c). And effectively, the court said providing admission to weaker children is a national mission. So don't compromise with it. Don't take it lightly. Clear? Good. So this is a small development. I think that will enhance our understanding. That will make us, good to go in that sense. So I thought we should cover this appropriately. Now, apart from this, the law very clearly says the school cannot take any donation fees, cannot take any financial benefit whatsoever. And the law also says that documentation problem should not be a reason for not admitting the child. Right? Good. Basically has to be fair. Now, in addition to this, there are some fundamental problems with right to education. I'll discuss the analysis in a bit, but the fundamental issue is, one, I have right to education. And second is, do I have the right to fail a child if the child is not performing very well? Okay. Now, in 2024, the RTE rules have been amended. And this is actually a very unique problem to solve. If you fail the child and the child stops attending school, then the entire system is gone. But if you pass the child, and the child should have not been passed, the child really hasn't learnt anything. While in our books, the child is functionally literate. But effectively, what ends up happening is that the child is not ready to face the world, is not employable. The child is not conversant. Correct or not? So a balance has to be made. So what has happened is that in 2024, the RTE rules have been slightly tweaked, where you have mandatory exams in class 5 and class 8. They're also in sync with NEP restructuring. If the students fail in class 5 or class 8, they will get extra classes. they will get a re-exam within 2 months. If they fail the re-exam, then they will be detained. They will not be asked to move to the next class. At the same time, no student can be expelled before completing elementary education. Do we understand this? Yes or no? Simple. Good. On top of this, we also have the PM Poshan scheme, which used to previously be called the midday meal scheme. Correct? Yes. But that no detention is not an absolute. Now you have to pass an exam, otherwise, you have to take a re exam. You will not be expelled at all. Good. Now, the PM Poshan scheme, which used to previously be called as the National Program for Midday Meals in Schools, is effectively the same thing. Now, why is this important? Please know this. While this is about food and health, it is still implemented by the Ministry of Education. Are we clear on this? Yes. Are we clear on this? It is still implemented by the Ministry of Education. Good. Now, so what does PM Poshan effectively do? PM Poshan effectively is about giving hot cooked meals to children. Now, please understand what this means. The idea is about 100 to 150 grams of good food grain to primary and upper primary students. A lot of times that food grain or the vegetables of it can be grown within the school premises in the nutrition garden. It also provides for social audits, and it also has some special provisions by linking it to aspirational districts program. But what is the primary program? It covers students from classes 1 to 8. One is often called as Bal Vatika in Indian terminology. And this is for government and government aided schools. Okay. The idea is to provide hot fortified meals. Fortified means there has to be iron, there has to be folic acid, there has to be vitamin. So you solve nutritional deficiencies. You have to provide 100 grams of food grains per child per day for primary, 150 grams for upper primary students. This scheme will cover all the costs for ingredients, fuel, and these costs are to be shared between the center and the states. It also provides for something called SNIs, School Nutrition Gardens, wherein in the school itself, you will build a nutrition space, and the job is going to effectively be to ensure that that nutrition space caters to the vegetable requirements of the school. Are we clear on this? Yes. You also have mandatory social audits, and you can have community participation. The community can come in and offer grains and food, etc., to something called Tithi Bhojan. Are we clear on this? Yes or no? Good. Anemia Mukh Bharat also included. Please know that the new rules are very clear. Social audit in all districts is compulsory. Tithi Bhojan, which is a community participation program where special food is given to children on occasions or special occasions in addition to the regular meal, is compulsory. It also adds what is called vocal for local, which is the states and union territories are encouraged to decide menu which is suitable to the local conditions, but within the prescribed limits, and try to grow, and try to grow food like millet, vegetable, condiments, and you can get them from the farmers produce organizations. You can get them from women self-help groups. The idea is to promote employment, economic development, improving national nutritional standards, all of it in together. Do we understand this? Yes. Good. So the right to education effectively works on this principle. I would highly recommend that once you should go through PCN 6. I've given you a lot of technical details here, so you must know. Now, I'd like to discuss broadly the analysis of the right to education program. What has happened, what has not happened, how can we make it better, etc., etc., etc. Clear? Okay, let's start. We're good to go? Good. Apart from this, the two judgments that you should know in terms of evolving right to education, one is Mohini Jain and the second is Unni Krishnan. Between the two, I would rather have you know Unni Krishnan more than Mohini Jain. Mohini Jain is a 1992 judgment, Unni Krishnan is a 96 judgment. 93 judgment, sorry. In Mohini Jain versus State of Karnataka, this is more about, donations being charged, etc. It is here where education was linked to Article 21 for the first time, where the court said education is essential for dignity. The court said without education, all other rights are fairly pointless. Okay. However, having said that, it was still a very open-ended judgment. So what happens in Unni Krishnan is the court takes a more stronger stand. The court takes a more reaffirmed stand. So here the court says you should cover education up till the age of 14. And beyond 14, it is left to the states. So effectively, Unni Krishnan is one of the triggers to Article 21A. Do we understand this? This judgment directly leads to Article 21A. Are we clear on this? Good. We've already discussed the 2012 Society versus Unaided Schools, Society of Private Unaided Schools versus Union of India, where the applicability of Section 12(1)(c) was upheld. Correct? Good. We also know Pramati's judgment that RT is not applicable to minority institutions. Yes. Good. Very good. Now, for kids who are admitted under RT, it's not just about admission. From classes to textbook to uniforms, everything. There are no hidden charges whatsoever. So RT kids in government schools, in government aided schools, in private schools. In private schools, it works on reimbursement basis. Government, no. Are we clear on this? And this will have a feature of age appropriate admission. That means a 10-year-old child can directly be admitted to class 5. And if the 10-year-old child is going to class for the first time, you'll have to give them extra classes to cover up. Do we understand this? It is a very critical point. There is somebody who's 10 years old, who's never gone to school. You will straight away take them and put them in class 5. Straight away. Right? And whatever gap is there, you'll try to fix that gap by giving additional classes. Do we understand age appropriate admission? Good. So, this is the general aspect. Now, where are the problems? Where are we going wrong? See, first and foremost, there is a quality crisis. If we look at any of the ACER reports where we see gaps in quality outcomes, this is a fundamental problem here. If you look at any of the ACER reports, there are gaps in quality outcomes. Yes. Good. Second, there is a coverage issue if you think of it. It guarantees 6 to 14. This is too late and this is too early. This does not even coincide with class 10th or 12th as a formal accreditation. And where real cognitive development happens, you're not guaranteeing that. Yes, makes sense. Third, teacher absenteeism is being a major problem for us. At any given day in India, 50% of teachers and 50% of students are absent. So we will have to look at some enforcement of this. The 25% quota is very weakly enforced. Remember, in these answers, your points are explanatory enough, but there have to be as many as possible. Are we clear? Yes. Overall, when your education spending is low, we spend roughly 3% where we should be spending 6% of our GDP. More often than not, you still see a lot of caste and other biases in the schools. In private schools also, they are treated separately, they're treated differently. The question that was asked in the mains exam, incentive driven, it has failed to create incentive. It is input based, it is not outcome based. This was the question. We are not caring about learning outcomes. We are not caring about are the kids finishing school on time. So retention and learning outcomes are not really a focus here. All that we care is getting students admitted and getting them an infrastructure. Right? And even if there is right to education, the overall enforcement and the accountability of states is very, very varied. It is very uneven. Absenteeism of teachers is okay, but there's also a general issue of teacher quality. Correct or not? Yes. Now, RTE recommends this to be 3 to 18 so that it can cover ECC and everything else. But this has still not been implemented yet. You may have heard of something called Nipun Bharat, which is foundational learning, foundational literacy and numeracy mission. Basic learning has to be integrated properly. Overall, India's largest education scheme is the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, which is an umbrella scheme which covers everything school. So the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan would also be offering support here. Correct? Makes sense? On top of this, we've also started looking at PM Shri schools, which is effectively some qualitative benchmarking schools. Make sense? Make sense? So, what are our core education schemes? Our core education schemes are PM Shri, Samagra Shiksha. You would have heard of Prerna, basically an experiential and an inspirational learning program. Would have heard of Ullas or the New India Literacy Program, especially for people above the age of 15 who missed out on formal schooling. Nipun Bharat, so National Initiative for Proficiency in Reading and Understanding with Numeracy, to ensure that every child has foundational literacy and numeracy by grade 3. The target is 26-27 this year, which is why this is slightly important. Clear? Then you would have heard of something called Vidyanjali, which is nothing but a school volunteer management program. And then you would have heard of something called Vidya Pravesh, which is basically a 3-month school preparation module for grade 1 students, like a welcoming environment. Then you would have heard of what is called Diksha, launched in 2017, basically to ensure teacher training and professional development at a mass scale. Swayam, which has e-learning modules available across the board. It is very effective if done right. Then there is Nishtha, the National Initiative for School Heads and Teachers Holistic Advancement. It is nothing but the transitioning or the training of school management and school administration also. Correct? Good. इसके बाद तो नहीं है. These are all the schemes that we generally know to play. And now see, while we are analyzing right to education, we simply analyzed it on this front. You can arrange the points accordingly. Make sense? Good. Then comes the second aspect which is important. is चलो ये सब तो ठीक है, But what does the NEP actually talk about? Because NEP is still a work in progress. And NEP for school, the most important aspect of NEP is restructuring our entire school ecosystem. Yes, we currently have 10 plus 2 to move to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. 5 years of foundational stage, 3 years of preparatory stage, 3 years of middle stage, and 4 years of secondary stage. This is what it is. Yes. 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. This foundational stage covers 3 years of pre-primary and 2 years of classes 1 to 2. This is the preparatory stage, which basically covers classes 3 to 5, ages 8 to 11. Then you have the middle stage for another 3 years, classes 6 to 8, 11 to 14. And then you have the secondary stage. Are we clear on this from here? Are we okay with this? Good. To basically restructure it. Now, generally what happens is they tend to cover here to here as classes 1 to 10, 6 to 16, and then 11, 12, then all of those. This is the new framework. Okay. Classes 9 to 12, ages would be 14 to 18, I think. Yeah. This is fundamentally what it is. This is early childhood care and education. Are we okay with this? Do we understand this? As fun language and all of this is, to study the language problem and education policy is not relevant for the exam. We just need to know this well enough. Clear? Make sense? Good. So this effectively takes care of what is generally called the education set. Are we okay with this? Yes. I was thinking of we've got excellent upload speeds today. I was thinking of getting your IR lectures up and running today. Is that okay with you? So that I want to do like a full closure before we do our poverty and hunger. Is that okay? Can we do that? Because the thing with IR is that right now IR just needs a base to be set. There's nothing that is relevant from IR for the mains exam right now. What is important here only, put them here only. You see them on your portal. Okay? Make sense? Please remember, do not do anything for IR mains right now. Whatever happens from January till June is actually going to be asked in this year's mains exam. What we need to do in IR is to just have a base. You should understand how the world functions. You need to understand what the basics of foreign policy is. What is India's foreign policy? How does it work? What you need to understand is a larger stencil of relations between countries bilaterally and multilaterally. What you need to understand are larger geopolitical themes like maritime, terror, environment, things like that. But you do not need, under any circumstances, to do technical details. About 7 lectures, at least. Yeah. Uh, I mean, Sakshi, it's not a solvable issue. I think eventually the issue here comes down to, are you making the learning engaging enough? You know, that is the larger aspect. See, again, I speak something. I'll say something very clear and upfront. We've taken a very conscious call to cover these aspects in detail. I hope that's okay with you. Because I realized when we started governance, a lot of your basics were not clear. And it would be wrong of me to do a mains crash course on governance when you don't know your basics on governance. I hope you understand that. While yes, it takes time and it takes us a certain, you know, closure, but it would be wrong. It would be a rushed affair. And we had the time to really do things in detail. We make the most out of it. But that's something that is it's a pedagogical thing. At least with the patience that we've gone through the mains, the governance part and the social justice part, I think is going to give us a great degree of return. Polity everybody does, or something somebody does. And these are areas that nobody does properly, unfortunately. Yes, makes sense. Ground realities have to be improved. That's not an argument, it's a status. Good. Chalo, I'll get to IR work now. See you. Bye bye.